Why, hello there. Welcome to another episode of the Way podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about values. Values are important as they guide our actions in life. We'll start by further establishing this importance, discussing how understanding our personal values can help us better understand our goals in life. We'll then move on to ask how our values formed and discuss the role of our socialization and our own personal experiences in the formation of our personal values. And then finally, we'll address the primary question of what are values. We'll start with a more general definition of values being fundamental beliefs that guide our action. And then we'll move on to trying to identify a universal set of specific values. As you do, in doing this, we'll discuss the difficulties of doing so philosophically before exploring a more practical approach, namely the Schwartz theory of basic values and how you can apply this theory and use it in your own life. This episode is a real cracker, so I hope you enjoy.
So we're going to talk about values. Why are values something that we should be talking about?
Well, if we're thinking about self-improvement and the process of setting goals, creating a plan, setting goals, breaking them down to sub-goals, basically creating a plan of action to achieve them. I think values are important because they actually determine the goals we select in the first place. And so we've had some discussions on this, but I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that and how do you think values are formed?
Well, that's a very interesting question because, as you said, values are the things that ultimately influence our choice of goals. And actually, on a deeper level, I believe they influence more than that. I believe that they influence, in a way, every reaction that we have to the external world or the internal world in the first place. But without going into the complexities of that just quite yet, it's a very important question to ask because if values are the things that influence the goals that we choose, and we know how important it is to choose your goals well, because assuming that you're going to be creating a plan to achieve your goals, those are the things that are going to be determining all the actions that you take, the way that you live your life, what you pursue in your life. So if values are the things that determine your goals, how your values are determined is a super important question to ask. And I would even expand your question with another question before I answer both of them, by saying that what is the difference between goals and values in the first place? Why is there this middle thing between just nothing and goals? Why aren't goals the highest level entity? So I believe that the way that we get our values is by making explicit all the experiences that we have in our life, the socialization, just the past memories, making them explicit and defining them as some sort of concept in our head. Now, to move this jump from the realm of past experiences to this realm of an explicit value, I say that I feel that I'm very strongly affiliated with the value of hedonism, for example. How does this jump happen? Well, this jump happens, in order to understand this jump, we need to understand that our past experiences, our past socialization, all of that is really modeled as concepts inside of our mind. And what is ultimately happening is a computation that our subconscious does in collaboration with our conscious mind in moving this web of experiences that has etched itself as concepts into our head, moving that and computing these explicit values out of that. So this is a very interesting process because this is also to answer the second question that I posed. The reason that there are values in between abstract happenings inside of our heads and the goals that we choose for ourselves is because we don't really choose our values. Values are more so determined by how we have lived our life, what has happened to us, what have other people told us around us, our nature and our nurture, to use psychological terms. And then these values, these are something that rather than sitting down and saying, I want to value this, I want to value that, these are something that we have to listen to the signals from within ourselves. Yes, the signals are dynamic. They're not static. That's a very important point to stress. It's not like you have a set of values and once you figure them out, it's the same for your whole life. No, that's why you have to be constantly mindful of them. And the values are the things that help you actually sit down and now choose your goals in a high quality way. Because if you sit down and start just randomly saying, oh, I think that my goal is a lot of money and a lot of women and etc., unless knowing why you're choosing these goals, because goals are something you do choose. You do choose how and what it is that you want to pursue in life. Unless you're really mindful and conscious of the things that are influencing your decisions, you will never really make the most high quality decision there is. And the buck has to stop somewhere. Somewhere has to be the point where you're no longer deciding the thing, but you're simply listening, because it is a fact that our subconscious influences what we do. And in order to bridge this gap in this process of reflection and choosing these goals between the subconscious and the actual goals that you have, we can bridge this gap using this concept of values. And to repeat, values are us making explicit the socialization and the past experiences that have happened to us in our past life up until this point, our nature and our nurture. And we can then use these values to choose the goals, because the values sort of codify how we react to different situations. And the thing is, our goals we always choose in order to achieve some sort of state of being. We want to improve either how we feel inside, how the world looks around us. And since we choose our goals, trying to change the state of reality around us and within us towards a more desirable state, values are necessarily the thing that we choose our goals according to, because values define how we react to a certain state. If, for example, I value hedonism very highly, if I have physical pleasure, I react to that state of pleasure very positive, the state of being very positively. If, for example, I very strongly value benevolence, then I'm going to react to the state of being where someone is being hurt around me very negatively. And since these values influence how we react to different situations, these are the things that we're choosing our goals according to, because we want to choose our goals in such a way that they bring about the state of reality that we enjoy, that we react to positively. But to move this conversation further...
Well, actually, before you do that, I think just to put what you've been saying in another way.
Yeah.
So if we understand the goal as your intention to change your state of being from your current one to a desired state of being, would you say then that our values define what desired is? They define what this desired state of being actually looks like.
Exactly, because what is desire really? Desire ultimately is the feeling of wanting another state. Desire is that feeling of wanting another state. And because our values define how we react to each state, if we are looking at the sort of delta between two states that desire acts on, desire is trying to pull us from one state of being to another state of being. It's this power inside of us that directs us to make a change. Since values are the thing that define how we react to state A and how we react to state B, let's say that I'm very poor, I don't have any food right now. I'm not happy about that because I value having security, I value having freedom, I value the freedom as in the ability to go and explore the world, for example. I value having warmth, agency, whatever. Then because I value these things, I react negatively to being poor and homeless on the street. And I react positively to being wealthy, able to travel the world, etc. And because values dictate how I react to these two states, they also sort of create the delta between the two states, making one pull towards the other. We could even say, borrowing sort of a metaphor from physics, that in the same way that air wants to move towards a lower pressure area always, our state of being always, through the emotion of desire, wants to move towards a situation, a state of being where our values are more highly catered to.
Okay, yeah.
We keep speaking of these values. What even are values?
Well, I think that we tend to describe them as, if someone asks you what your values are, we tend to just answer by listing some sort of personal attributes, like or personal attributes or states of being. So I value hedonism. I value benevolence. But I think the deeper question of what are values is quite a hard one to answer, because I think it's quite hard if we assume objective truth to exist, because
Big assumption, but
because like, if we really think about it, that's quite a big assumption to make. But if we assume that objective truth exists, that in some sort of objective reality there exists universal human values,
Yeah.
they're quite hard to find, right? Because we all have our own experiences. And even if our own experiences pointed towards the same type of value, the nature of language, because it's so imprecise, means that we probably describe them, we probably conceptualize them slightly differently. So this is why I think when we're answering the question, what are values? And we're asking it because we want to understand our own so that we can then understand our goals in life and kind of just set our lives, set our lives in motion,
in the
start
right
taking
direction.
action.
Yeah.
I think like some models help.
Yeah.
So I mean, you would describe them one to me. Would you be able to?
Yeah, I think that a very practical model to use for values is by thinking them of a finite set of things, so to say, that we assign numbers to. So, for example, let's take the examples that we've been using throughout this podcast: benevolence, hedonism. Let's add one: universalism, for example. We could take, let's say that we say that all of our feeling of what values are can be codified in these three things. We would sit down and we would say, from 0 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 100, the scale really depends on what you want to use. Ultimately, all scales can be normalized. Based on this scale, how much do you feel that you value this certain value? So if I feel that a physical pure pleasure is very important to me, I would value hedonism highly, let's say a 9 out of 10. If I say that universalism, I don't really relate with that. That state of being described by that value is not really one that I feel this desire towards. Then, to be more precise, to say that the state of being in which this value would be met, I would not feel very good in that state of being, because the value would dictate, if I had this value highly, that would dictate that in this situation where this value is being met, I would feel very positively. If this is not the case, if I envision myself being in a situation where, let's say for benevolence, I envision myself being in a situation where someone is getting hurt, and for some weird reason I say that I don't really care about that, it doesn't, I don't mind, then probably I'm a psychopath, but also probably I do not value benevolence highly, because that state of being, I don't react in a negative way. Maybe I react in a neutral way, and God forbid I would react in a positive way. That means that I'm going against that value. And yeah, so we can define values, or at least a model for what values are in a practical way, as a set of things that we give a number to. We say how strongly we relate to that. And the reason that this is useful is that we can then use this. We can, first of all, the first reason why it's useful to have this explicit model of value number attached to it, value number attached to it, and have it as a finite set, and have it as a set that multiple people agree upon, maybe some sort of universal set even, is because, one, if we have it shared between different people, we can compare ourselves to other people. A problem that a lot of people often have is that they have no reference point, because they haven't done these sort of thought exercises in the past before. So how am I supposed to know how strongly I value benevolence, for example? Yeah, I kind of feel bad if someone's getting hurt next to me, but is that the 4? Is that the 7? Is that the 3? We don't know. Having a universal set that you and I both use. So let's say, for example, we could use Dr. Schwartz's set of universal values, or his 10 core values, for example, which are also very neatly laid out in a circle in such a way that they try to occupy approximately equal distances in the space of all possible values. If we decide both to use this set of 10 values, we can then compare. Okay, do you think, we can discuss, do you think that you feel more negatively about someone getting hurt next to us than me, or less? We can discuss. And when we reach an agreement, we can see, oh, so you said that you wanted to give it a 7. I said I wanted to give it an 8, but you actually feel more negatively about it. Then your value of benevolence should be higher. Your number for the value of benevolence should be higher. So this is one benefit. We can use a universal scale so that we can discuss the numbers, and we can reach on the most accurate profile for ourselves. Another reason why it's good to have it explicitly defined is because that makes it even stronger of a connection between the world of the subconscious and the world of the conscious. As we said, the purpose of values is fundamentally to bridge the gap between who we believe we are and how we react to certain situations in a subconscious way, our nature and our nurture, and to bridge that with an explicit understanding of what goals we should choose. And the values act as the mediator because they allow us to codify how we react to certain situations, and so we can then choose the goals to match to bring these situations about. And because they act as this mediator, it only makes sense to have them as explicitly defined as possible to make that jump from the non-explicit to the explicit as simple to continue, sort of, so to say, as possible. Yeah, I think that this is the model of values that I would give.
Yeah, I mean, and just to stress, we started with a question, I mean, just now with like, what are values? And just to emphasize that we're not trying to seek some sort of objective truth.
No.
I mean, we could probably do maybe a whole series of episodes trying to understand like values on a deeper philosophical level. But I think for the purpose of linking this to the first question of why values are so important, specifically in enabling you to understand your goals and so be able to take more conscious action, more directed action in your life, values are important. It's important to just perhaps use some sort of universally and empirically tested model that enables you to not only be able to conceptualize different values, but have a means of talking about your values with another person. Because what you'll find is that if, say, but you and your friend both looked at this, sorry, what was their name?
Dr. Schwartz.
Dr. Schwartz. I probably butchered that part. but my apologies, but whatever. So, so if you and your friend both took, I assume there's some sort of test you can take.
Exactly, the PVQRR, he calls it, a set of 36 questions that can be used to then compute these numbers for these values.
Yeah, so if you and your friend both took them, not only do you yourself are you able to conceptualize different values, which I think is an importance in of itself, because as you said, the whole point of conceptualization is bridging the gap between your subconscious mind and the values that exist within there, the values that motivate your action, and the realm of the conscious in which you're able to actually kind of take these concepts and link them together into some sort of explicit
And
plan
apply
of
them.
action, apply them to your life. That's the whole point of conceptualization. So using these models are not only important in of themselves because it enables you to conceptualize your values and so act upon them, but also because it provides you with a point of reference from which to talk to your friend and perhaps refine your own understanding of what actually you think. Because while it is a model, while it does aim at some sort of precision, or at least an increased amount of precision, whereby with precision I mean you understanding what your values are. Again, this assumes that you can do that, but we're not going to get into like skepticism and subjective truth and all that stuff. It provides you with a point of reference from which to be able to understand, okay, what do I mean by a 5 on the scale of 1 to 10? If my friend says that they're a 4 on the scale of, I don't know, altruism, benevolence, I'm not sure what the specific one was, but I know for a fact that I put 6, technically higher than them, but I know for a fact, because I know my friend quite well, that they are definitely more altruistic than me, then perhaps maybe I should slightly adjust that.
And what's happening here is a collaborative effort of moving the subconscious and the unexplicit into the realm of the explicit. Because what you said right now, I know my friend, that's a feeling. It's a subconscious concept that I am more benevolent than them. But the values, if we have a shared set of defined values that we are rating ourselves on, this allows us to now take this subconscious understanding of how we compare to each other and to codify this in the set of values and compare it against each other, as you said. And maybe even more relevantly to the present day and age and to the technologies that we're building at wayy, actually, it allows you to compare it and talk about it with a machine. Because what we are also building right now is a bot that takes this understanding, this empirical understanding of what values most commonly describe a person and how these values are defined through their reactions to different situations, and how by gauging their reactions to different situations, we can actually compute this set of numbers. We are trying to put this into a bot that can talk with a person and help them understand themselves better. And we can only do this if this conversation is mediated by a set of explicit agreed upon values. And this can only happen if we first have enough of this data of people comparing themselves against each other to train that bot on. Because unless we agree on a set of values that we discuss between ourselves and assign different numbers to and agree upon it, we cannot give a concrete set of values for the bot to query you about and to later give you a score on. So to summarize, maybe you could just summarize why is it so important to talk about values and why is it so important to have a good model for what they are?
Yeah, so it's important to understand your values because your values influence the goals you choose in your life. So if you're struggling with the issue of, oh, I don't know what my goals are in life, it's what you probably need to do is reflect on that which actually determines your goals. What are my values? And because values, unless you're some sort of philosopher which has dedicated a lot of their academic pursuit to the understanding of the very nature of values, unless you're them, I'm not. I mean, to be fair, we could do it, but it requires a lot of effort. It requires taking things to a more abstract, a deeper level. Models are important because they enable you to. They provide you with a more practical means of understanding what values are, and so provide you with the starting point from which you can then think, okay, this is a model for values. Most people, they're empirically tested, so most people deem them to be representative of what they think values are. So that provides me with common language from which to compare them to other people. And so they're probably good enough for me to be able to then think, okay, these are my values. Now I understand my values. I can start thinking about actually, okay, what do I want to, how can I maximize them by setting certain goals in my life? And I just want to finish by making one more point and saying that in talking about models and in talking about creating some sort of universalized means of values, of creating a set of values that we hope is universal to a lot of people, that is fair to do because if we go back to the second question we asked, which is how the values form, we must understand that a person's values don't exist in a vacuum, right? It's not, they don't exist solely with that person because obviously values reflect to a great degree. And this comes through socialization. This also comes through your own experience and the way you're hardwired. They come through what society deems to be good. Because obviously a value could be, say, benevolence, because society has evolved in such a way that benevolence and helping out fellow person is deemed to be good. That's a more societal level. And on a biological level, hedonism might be deemed to be good because we have some sort of biological wiring towards deeming pleasure to be good. So we've talked about why they're important values, how you can use models to understand them, and that it's actually fair to create some sort of universal values because...
And it's most important is practical. And this is what this podcast is about. It's about exploring these sometimes hard to pin down concepts in such a way that they will help you live your life your way.
All right. That's it for this week. Thank you very much for listening. Be sure to check out our social media pages and website, links in the description, for more on how you can live your life your way. Also, if you felt that you gained something from this episode, whether it be a small insight or transcendental, reality shaping piece of enlightenment, then feel free to share this episode with your friends, family, whoever it may be, for there is no better gift than that of a good idea. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week.